that I could be with all my friends that I grew up with. Socially, everyone agreed with me, and they put me into 6th grade. Academically, I suffered forever. I got an A in college statistics, but you give me addition and subtraction, and I'll suffer with it. I know that sounds funny, but losing those 2 years, those basics, I should have been put back. It was a tough transition, and I suffered forever for it. And the irony is that my mother, before she married my father, was a math teacher. Socially was very difficult because as a child you want to fit in, and here we are, we're on the media every night, we're on the local news, we're in the national news and the newspapers, had police people, their protection, they were at our school door. I was never left alone, so I would get teased a lot. I would have kids who thought that the attention was neat, even though to me it was the most amazing burden you could have when you're at that age. I remember learning about my mother's second suicide attempt by a child in 6th grade, just weeks after we had been returned, and it was in the boys' bathroom. And he had told me this. I had gone running out into the teacher's arms, and she had wondered how I found out about it, and it was by another student. So other kids in the neighborhood weren't allowed to come over and play with us because we were the notorious Berne brothers, placing a stigma on us that it was our fault. Kids weren't allowed to come over and play with us. No, they were afraid that maybe if my mother did something crazy, their kids would be hurt. I don't know, I can't speak for them. Socially, we were alienated. It was really difficult. It took me a long time until I made my best friend in early high school to just open up and become normal. Great question. Thank you. Some other questions? No? Oh, yes, right here. We have discussed it, and even though we're at age 40, that's to be determined. I think I would make a wonderful father. I have a lot of love to give. Boy, am I going to hear about it in the car. She'll be asleep. It is an excellent question. To yet be determined, the answer is this has given me insight, everything to do as a parent that my mother didn't know what to do. Absolutely, I'd be a great parent because of this. I also consider making the difference, going out and speaking, whether in a wonderful small group like this or nationally on television. If I saved just one child's life, then I've made a difference in a child's life. So I have 2 ways to give back to children, and I can't ask more than that. What a great question. Any other? Yeah, over here. Well, I was age 10, my brother was age 5. We actually had a decent lifestyle. Here we are, we're with a parent with a lot of money. For example, when we lived in St. Thomas, and our next door neighbor was Linda Carter. She played Wonder Woman, the actress. And so we weren't suffering in these places. We were in nice condos, we were in nice hotels, as a child, it was like a giant vacation, and aside from my mother's erratic mood swings, I didn't really know something was wrong until I was old enough to recognize that changing your name at that age, not going to school, going through all the things I described are not normal. And then when we were found and thrown in front of the media and the law system, then that's when I knew something was very, very wrong. But when you're a 10-year-old child and you're with a parent, it's that premonition, well, And we face this at the center as well. Well, it's not as serious as being with a stranger, but the effects are just as damaging. I live with the same effects, and that's what I try to get the message out there. Parental abduction is just as damaging as stranger abduction. And we need to educate people and show the lawmakers this, make a difference.
Would you take your doctors?
I don't remember going to doctors, no. I remember taking vitamins. I don't remember any consistency, any of the normal consistencies. In fact, I remember when we got off after being returned to my father, when we got off the plane and we were finally on New York land, he did something very strange, and if he was here tonight, he's traveling overseas, he'd be laughing because the first thing he did was he opened my mouth to look at my teeth, to see, because we hadn't even went to the dentist or anything. So, yes, I have real teeth. Anyone else? I'd love to expand on more of my story. No? Oh, right over here.
When you're with your mother, were you allowed to have friends with any other kids?
We made a couple close friends, but she always kept them at a distance. We were never allowed to tell them our real names. In fact, when we were in Houston, as I began to get older, I was just about 12 years old then, I made a friend and his name was Scott. And I could never slip that my real name was Scott. At that time, I was Joe. And my mother always made it a game for us, changing our names. We were always allowed to pick our own names. And my heroes growing up were Joe and Frank Hardy of the Hardy Boys. So I was Joe Hardy for a long time. A very dangerous game. But the answer is no. She kept everyone at a distance, had no friends herself. No, because she always made it clear that we could not see her parents because it would put them in danger, quote, danger. What I learned was later on, they didn't want to be implicated should we have gotten caught. They were implicated. They had funded it. This came out, again, the laws weren't strong enough. The laws still aren't strong enough. These are misdemeanors. That's why I'm out here speaking about this. So that if this was, again, I'll repeat myself, but if these were felonies, what a great deterrence. We'll save so many children from going through these. Thanks. Anyone else before? Yeah, right back here.
Do you see any reconciliation in the future with your brother? Do you know where he is? Is he okay?
I do. I know that the first part of your question is no. And when you survive certain circumstances, this is the best way that I was put on the spot. I was on the Sally show when I was asked that question, and I didn't know how to answer it except just listen to my heart, and my heart says this. When you survive something so traumatic and you get to the point where you can recognize it, you're grateful for surviving it. And going back to that point in time, I don't know if I would be able to survive it all a second time. I focus on the future. I focus on making a difference. When I was notified by a medical examiner in Texas that my mother took her life, I reached out to my brother because he was down there living with her at the time. When he answered the phone, he did not know that I had already learned of my mother's suicide, and when in the conversation very quickly, he informed me that she died of cancer. I believe that he probably tortured her the same way he tortured my father into a nervous breakdown. If there's anything I knew about my mother, her biggest concern when we were missing was if something happened to her, what would happen to my brother and I? And why would she leave my brother alone down in Houston, Texas, all these years later? The answer, that's a long way of saying, no, I'm not going back. I am surrounded by people that love me. I've got Joe, I've got my dad, wonderful group of friends, amazing organization with Ed at the helm. I don't need to go back. I just pray that he gets the help that I've received, and maybe he can make a difference himself. Again, there are no winners with this. Everyone loses. It's very tragic. We're talking about a brother that was 5 years difference, and we were very close.